So we carry on the talk on this, still on the aspect of wisdom. Here, the nature of wisdom, which is the state of the mind. In the Vipassana practice, we arouse this wisdom because it is a component that is crucial for development of Vipassana. The nature of wisdom or the qualities of this wisdom is to discern. Its job is to segregate different phenomena, so to see them as they are. We talk about while you're meditating, while you're observing, you begin to discern the different qualities or different aspects of the bodily sensation, different hard, soft, cold, movement, rising, falling, lifting, pushing, dropping, so many other sensations that when you begin to truly pay attention to them, being thorough, being detailed in noticing, then this factor of wisdom arises. As it arises, it shows you the different qualities of the objects. Or even like the different feelings. You begin to notice different hard, soft, painful feelings, like a numb feeling, poking feelings, different sort of feelings that arises. And also the nature of wisdom also not just only discern these different qualities, but it's also discerning the conditioning. So one object condition the other. For example, you notice the intention. As the intention arises, it makes the leg move. Not I am the one who makes the leg move, but it's the conditioning aspect of the mind and body process. As they do, you begin to see how they interact with each other, how they are interdependent on each other. In the beginning part, we notice this intention usually in the walking, from standing to walking. But as you train in this Vipassana, we extend noticing of this intention in various activities. We begin to see that the mind precedes all the actions, even with speech. Then you see that there are countless intentions that arises moment to moment. But that takes a little bit more practice for us to go through. But here, the nature of wisdom is to show you these processes. So the nature of discernment on the next aspect is to check whether our actions are whether they are suitable or not suitable for the development of Vipassana. It may be suitable when we do it in the everyday life. When you are thirsty, when you feel like sleeping, you feel like resting, you rest. You feel like thirsty, you take a drink. Over here, it's a bit different. You got to see whether sometimes that even that actions of ours is all being pulled by the craving and the desire behind it. The external part is the action, but the mind sometimes it feels bored. It feels drowsy, it feels lethargic, it doesn't want to make any effort. Then the craving and the desire for us to do other things. Or sometimes in other times, we notice how the mind, we don't see how the mind, what it does, but a lot of times the speech has came out or it already comes out. But here in the retreat, we have to check our intention first. We have to check whether it is suitable for us to speak or not to speak. Because sometimes what you say out and what is in the heart, it can be two different things. So here we begin to take note of these things, and this is And this thing, while we are here, during in the retreat, we can actually truly train the mind and the body. Yeah. Because when we are out there, it's hard for us to see all these things. We are bombarded with all kinds of stimulus from the eyes, ears, and everything. Yeah. So hard for us to notice what is going on in the heart area. Yeah. What is going on with the mind? So therefore, while we are in the retreat, this is the best chance for us to truly notice, because the mindfulness itself, it makes this thing, it makes the nature clearer for us to notice them. Until in the future, then you begin to see that a person becomes better, more straightforward, more honest, more sincere from the inside out, rather from the but somebody has to tell us to do this or do that. So this is one area. Now the next area of this wisdom factor that all yogis also have to learn to develop here is to, again, to segregate or to discern out which are the right meditation objects and which are not the right meditation objects in Vipassana. Because if you are not taught in this way, if you are not taught to know which is the right objects and which are not the right objects, you will, for most of the time, take up the wrong object. Because the wrong object is more interesting. Right objects, for example, the pain. Right object, but not very interesting, very painful. Now, here tonight we'll look into what are the wrong objects, and we have to know what are the wrong objects because they sometimes can mimic itself as if like a real object. And if you cannot differentiate them out, you're going to take them up and then you thought that you're still doing on Vipassana, whereas actually you are going out of the way. So here we got to be careful. Now, this, when we say the word wrong, it's actually also not good to use that wrong. The word wrong. It's more like not suitable object for Vipassana. But because it is very helpful when you are not doing Vipassana. Now, one of the things is our thinking, our planning, thoughts, memories. What else? Your creation, your visualization. All these are helpful in our everyday life, helpful in your work, helpful in our speech, helpful in so many things. But they are not Vipassana objects. They are not Vipassana objects because inherently inside them, they are actually nothing. So when there's nothing, there's no real impermanence. There's no real dukkha or unsatisfactoriness, and therefore also they have no real non-self or anatta. So all these things, they are actually, we put it in a way, it is created by the mind. Mind created. Now here mind created, thoughts and planning and visualization, even your commentaries, your talking inside your head, your dialogue, monologue, and so on, inside there. All these are, we call it conceptual object. All right, we put it as conceptual object. Now here is where the mind creates them. It's like the mind is like a projector. It projects out and then in front there's a screen, and then you see the movie there. You go into a cinema, everything is being projected out, then movies and all that. Then while you're watching it, you cry, you laugh, you're happy, everything as if like everything is so real. You go back also, you're all charged, but there's nobody there. It's just only lights and sound, and everything comes together. It looks so real. So too our mind too are the same. The consciousness or the mind aspect, it project all these things out, all these planning, memories of the past, even thinking about the present. Even while you are right now listening to me, you are also using a lot of conceptual thoughts, because you can understand what I'm talking about. If those people who don't understand English, then it'll be sound. It'll be a lot of sound to them. So here you are conceptualizing a lot of what I'm talking. You get it, you understand, well and good. So all these things are still concept. Now, in this concept, this is where, for most of the time, yogis fall into this trap. It falls into the trap that it goes into overdrive, overthinking. And again, and it plan, it conceptualize, it visualize, sometimes very pleasant, sometimes very unpleasant, sometimes neutral. But it keep on going, and it's very difficult for it to stop. The moment you stop for a few seconds, here again, it starts again. Here, stop again, it starts again. So difficult. Because, of course, this is our strong habit. Our habit from childhood until now, the mind hasn't stopped. Even you sleep, you start also dreaming a concept. All this, and it keep on going and going and going. Now, when we come into, like, if you understand a little bit of the 5 hindrances, one of the hindrances is called the restlessness and worry or regret in here. Restlessness here, what it means that the mind, it goes into overdrive, overthinking. The thinking cannot stop. While you're aware of it that the thinking is going on, but it just keep going and going and going and going. Sometimes it goes into a very random stories, sometimes in a very specific story, and it churning again and again. It keep producing, keep proliferating non-stop. The same story repeatedly again and again, under like a same theme. So, but whereas there are also other times that there are also thinking arises, but they are not restless thinking. The thinking arises, it needs to do something, it needs to tell people something. The mind is forming, the mind is creating out all the thoughts and so on. Then, but when it needs to stop, it can stop. For example, even like right now, if those who meditate for a longer period of time, sometimes you may notice that while you're noticing rising, falling, or sensation, then the thoughts are coming in. But the moment you're aware of it, it kind of stops. Or it comes in a little bit for a few seconds, then you're aware of it, oh, it stopped. For many of you, it comes in, you don't even know. You just already take over the mind, and then you fall into its story, and then you go on for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour. Then suddenly you realize, I'm supposed to meditate here, not thinking of all these things. So it takes a while. That means the mind goes into a lot of restlessness. So here is that we have to learn to, firstly, we have to learn to disassociate all these thoughts. If not, Every time the thoughts arises, we fall into its trap. Arises, we fall into its trap. So right now we must learn to disconnect. It's still there, but we begin to sort of like disconnect and begin to aware of it. Now the first few days, I mentioned very clearly as it's thoughts arises, you're aware of it, but you ignore it. You ignore it first for the first few days. You need to do that because the mindfulness is not strong enough. The thoughts come in, if you try to look at the thinking and the planning, you're going to drown into it, and then you're going to waste your time into all these thoughts and thinking and planning. But after a number of days, if the mindfulness starts to develop somewhat, there's some clarity there, then this is the time for us to begin to notice the thinking, the planning or the thoughts, and we must have the skills of how to deal with them. And not only just dealing with them, at the end also these thoughts also we must able to subside them, to make them, to abandon them, at least for a period of time. And you have to abandon them in the right manner. Or other words, we're going to transform the thinking process, all this thinking, into a meditation object. But this meditation object is in a way that you need to abandon them, because they are finally also part of the hindrances, and you need to abandon them. Whereas other objects, you are not supposed to abandon them. For example, like the pain. Pain is not a defilement. Your defilement is the anger or your irritation towards the pain. And that you should abandon them, not the pain. So a lot of times the yogi usually try to get rid of the pain, but they forget that the culprit here is the irritation, the annoyance, the dislike, the anger that's forming behind it. If you can catch those things, then well and good. Now, how do we manage this thinking? How are we going to manage the thoughts and planning and so on? Now let's say you're sitting down there. You're sitting there, and then after a while, thoughts arises. While it arises, perhaps you in the first day you didn't catch it. It goes on for a while, and then after that you caught it. Oh, I'm not supposed to be thinking. I'm supposed to be meditating. But then the thoughts is still forming. They're still proliferating at this moment of time. But you're already sort of aware of it, which is good in that way. Now, here, when we want to deal with these thoughts, of course, the first thing, as I said many times, you must not fall into the story. Any of the story, any of the proliferating, any of whether it's problem solving, because a lot of yogis, when they come into the retreat, they have tons of problem at home or at work. And then kind of like these things they could not solve that at the office or at work, then they come into the retreat. They sit there. Yeah, how come I mean, this is the solution is so simple, right in front there. I just kept on thinking about it. You just keep on processing and processing. Wow, how the mind is so wonderful. How could I miss it? Then you get caught into it. The mind trick you into it. Then you fall into the trap, and then you keep on churning and proliferating more solution, wonderful solution, until you forget to meditate. While you sit there as if like you're so straight up and everything's so nice, but you are not really there. Your mind is at home, your mind is at office. At one time, I have a yogi, after a retreat, supposed to give a Dhamma talk. And then while sitting there, and then he starts to create what sort of dharma and what sort of suttas, and then suddenly he thought of something, stop the meditation, open up a notebook, and then start writing, writing, and then close up the book, and then meditate again, and then keep forming again. You see, you get caught. You get caught with these thoughts. Yeah? We get caught in all kinds of thoughts. And here, sometimes their thoughts are so believable, or as if like, the thoughts are so clear, as if you could see things, or even some yogis, meditator, they thought that they could see spirits, they could see ghosts, they could see the devas, or could see all kinds of things. They could see like what's going on at home, at this hour, at this time. As if like the mind can able to scan through and then fly into the home and see the whole family there. Like a CCTV, Instead of you have a CCTV now, the mind could able to go there and and it looks so real. Everything looks so real. Exactly, you get caught into it. Now, if you're not careful with this type of thoughts, you will start to believe that you have some kind of special powers. You have some kind of special energy, or some kind of special development that it comes in, that you have all these type of supernatural powers and so on. All the psychic and everything. Or you thought that sometimes you could see what is going on in the future. Or some of you may have go into a bit of more reading about the suttas. Then there are people who thought that while they're sitting there, they have not seen this scene or these thoughts or these visual visions before, as if like very far into the old time, medieval times, as if like you see yourself there, and whether you are a person and so on, and they thought that they have able to recollect past lives. They got able to recollect past lives, and they get caught into it. They get delight into all these things. And there are people who I've met, who said that they can able to see almost 260 over past life. They actually count it, While you're sitting there, they count. That's what's going on with a lot of things, a lot of meditation. And they get delighted into it. And all kinds of things that all this creation becomes so, they don't realize that the whole meditation is all messed up. They don't realize, but because it's quite delightful, it's pleasant, it's nice. You could see all these things that you have not seen before. You can able to create. You can create, give rise to solution. You can able to see things much clearer by that thinking of yours. So you thought that you are something great, something wonderful, but it's actually you get caught into it. So this thing we have to learn to disassociate with it. Not to say that we have to suppress them. It's not about suppression, not about not thinking about them. It's not that. They will arise. It's about learning to disengage, not falling into the story or whatever visualization that arises. So how do we do that? We have to learn to not to identify the thoughts as mine. Not to identify it as mine or as yours or whatever. It is just thoughts. Because inside the thoughts, you see the I am factor is that, let's say you sit there and the vision of your mother arises. And the mother has passed away for so long, but right now it's coming right in front of you. so clearly. Yeah. And what are you going to do? And a lot of you maybe get sad because, oh, so long ago. Or maybe you get happy because she come and visit you. You know? So because you identified it as my mother, or you identified it as my parents, or identify my family, or mine, or this is my problem, I can solve it, mine. This is myself in the past. This is myself in the future. This is myself seeing all this beautiful scenery, everything. You identified it so strongly. And that identification towards all these things, you put the I there. Once you put the I there, then you get caught into it. You fall into it. So you must learn how to disengage. Even the next time the vision of the mother comes in, you have to note it as just seeing, or thinking, or vision. You just see it as a thought that is passing through. Not yours, not mine. Yeah. It's just a mental creation right now. It's hard for us to do that. But this is something that if you cannot disengage from it, you're going to get trapped every time. And not just only that, later part we'll talk about the emotion that comes with it. And it's even stronger during this time. Yeah. For now, we put the emotion aside first. We just look at thoughts. Let's say the thought arises. You're aware of it. You don't fall into its trap. You are not identified it. It's just, you know it as just a thought that is passing through. So here you label it as thinking, planning. And while you're observing it, you notice that sometimes the thoughts may change faster one after another. At some other occasion, the thoughts may just like slower, it moves a bit slower, one after another. Sometimes when you look at the thought, sometimes it's like very messy, very, very noisy, disquiet inside there, and as if like it's no, but you know that it's all thoughts. So this is how we pay attention to the thoughts without fall into its trap, without identifying it as who and what that is connected to myself. Yeah? So this is important for us to take note. Yeah. You watch the thoughts because this time the thoughts are a prominent object. You drop the rising, falling and everything, you watch the thoughts as it's passed through. Until you watch the thoughts, it starts to begin to fade away. Or it's, you begin to see that its energy starts to fade. Sometimes they have a little bit tail end. There's a little bit of thoughts here and there, but it's not a prominent object anymore. When it's not prominent, back to rising and falling, back to the bodily sensation. Yeah. Once in a while it will spring up again. It will come up again, clear. You're not fall into it. Then you notice the thoughts passing through. Not too difficult. The difficult part is for us is always the identification that you fall into the story. Once you're able to come out from it, your vipassana way of noticing will take over. Because of you already doing that lifting, pushing, dropping, rising, falling, the momentum actually is there already. It's just that right now for the thinking part, you just have must not identify, must not fall into the story, don't get drowned into the story. Let the story pass through, whatever it is. It is difficult. It's not easy, actually. Instruction is easy. I can talk and talk. But tomorrow, you will still fall into the story. It's not that you become, wow, I know what to do. Yes, you know what to do, but you still go into the story until you get the hang of it, that it comes out. You can come out from it. Yeah. It takes a while for the momentum to arise. As the mindfulness arises stronger, more continuous, then you find that these thoughts, the length of time that the thoughts arises, it become shortened. It shortened. Sometimes like in the beginning of the retreat, you may drown into it like half an hour. Then as the mindfulness grows, the time gets shorter, 15 minutes, then 10 minutes and 5 minutes. Then there'll come to a time, the mindfulness, because it's so powerful, the moment you look at the thoughts, you don't even have to note the thinking, planning, it's just fade away. It fades to the background, you just carry on. Then while you're noticing all your objects, it wants to come again, you're already aware of it. You don't have to purposely go and look for it. The mindfulness knows how to adapt to notice it, and then it just fade away, which is wonderful. Yeah. As I said, there'll be times that when the mindfulness is so continuous, so powerful, even you sit there hardly any thinking arises, hardly any drowsiness arises. It can be achieved by actually, a number of yogis that I've met in the past. So it's not an impossible task. It's all about training. It's all about putting more effort into the practice. Now, another part of this thinking, of thoughts and planning and all these memories, another one is that it comes with the emotion. Earlier on, it's just perhaps a neutral thinking that's passing through. That means it's neither happy nor sad. It's just thoughts that are passing through. Then you take note of it. Then it fades away. Well and good. But at times, there will be thoughts that comes with these strong emotions. Strong emotion could be like sadness, fear, or jealousy, or anxiety, restlessness, or even on the other hand, can be a lot of joy, a lot of happiness, a lot of delight inside there. So you have more like two extreme there, and we have to also deal with those thoughts too, and with this type of emotions. Now let's say you are sitting there. There are memories of the past that arises, and it makes you very sad. Every time that particular thought arises, tears comes out. You get very there's anxiety, there's emotion, there's very tight in the chest area. The eyes are swelling, the tears are coming out, or even sometimes dripping there. Well, that's what yogis go through. Then how do we deal with all these things? Although I use the word sadness, it can also be anger, it can also be anxiety, and so on. Now here again, you must not identify with that story. You must not identify with the incident. You must only see whether you yourself is inside the story, or whether that particular incident is a sort of like a very deep emotional state that is very much hurtful and difficult in your everyday life. Right now, in the retreat, they surface, and they surface even clearer compared to your out there. But here, while we are here, we have another tool for us to help us to overcome it, which is here the mindfulness. Now, how do we deal with it? So let's say you sit down there, and there's this type of sad thoughts arises. You see the vision, you see the past memory, you see that incident, then the tears start swelling, the tears starts coming out, and the sadness coming in. So what do you do then? So this time you have to note the sadness itself. You got to learn to again distance, sit back, and you have to watch that sadness. In the beginning part, that sadness is very difficult, very painful, very very discomfort, very uncomfortable during this time, very tight, and you have to watch them as they are. The nature of vipassana is to see not just only good objects, you also have to learn to accept the sadness too. So you watch the sadness. You learn to accept the sadness. You see them as they are. You watch them. Sadness, 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 sadness. And this time, your mind has to be strong. At least the mindfulness has to be strong. Watch the sadness. Watching it. Sadness, sadness, sadness. Then you notice that your tears are coming out. You don't go and then no, you take a tissue paper and wipe. No. You let the tears flow. And you watch the tears dripping. Then it comes out. You have to watch it. It drip. And then you watch sadness, angry. Whatever, however it comes in during this time, you stay and pay attention to it. Yeah. You watch it. In the beginning part, it's very uncomfortable. It's very difficult because right now you're facing sometimes your worst fears. You're facing your worst memory that and that has been there for the past 20, 30 years, and right now you are facing it face to face. Of course, it's going to be difficult. Of course, it's going to be painful. But this is where the Vipassana yogi have to see them as it is. You got to watch the sadness. You got to feel the sadness. You have to see how the sadness expanding, getting stronger, getting intense, and then you watch them until it begins to diminish. It begins to lighten up, and then slowly it fades away. Yeah. You got to see them, and it's not going to take you one. Sometimes it may not able to take you one session and then you overcome all the sadness. No. Sometimes it may take a few days. Sometimes it may take a retreat or two. As long as the mindfulness is coming up from the background, then next time, if the mindfulness getting stronger, what happened in the future? Let's say the same memory arises. The terrible, horrible memories arises. And next time, when you watch this type of thoughts, you begin to notice that the sadness is not so powerful anymore. It's so much weaker that the mind can able to manage it way much better. But the memory is still very clear. In other words, the memory is just memory, but it does not affect you anymore. Because right now the sadness has already gone. Or very much gone. Maybe there's a little bit more. Yeah. There was a yogi in some retreats. And this yogi, the mother, about 50 years old. The year before that retreat, the son passed away. 20 plus years old of the son passed away. I mean, of course, for a mother, this is terrible. This is horrible, for parents to go through the son that passed away. So, while I come into the meditation, every time sit down, that particular thoughts about the son comes up, totally distraught. tears and the sadness is so powerful. She says that not only just during the retreat, but also during the outside life, out there, whenever the thought arises, that memory, the everything that sometimes she sees, and it reminds her of the son. And we can understand that. I mean, we are not in the shoe, but we are really feel sorry for her in that sense. So here what we do is, again, we teach the yogi to how to overcome that particular sadness. This is not psychological thing. This is the way how during the Buddha's time also, even right now, that we have to learn to face that situation, even it arises, even how bitter it is, how terrible it is. So we teach her, you got to note your sadness. You cannot suppress the thoughts. The thoughts going to arise again and again. But you got to watch out for that sadness. You got to be strong. You got to be firm. You got to label it sadness, sadness, sadness. Yeah. So the first interview, she came in, a lot of tears. We have to give her some tissue paper. We have to console her. And then we have to tell her, you got to note the sadness. No choice. You got to note. You got to be firm. No, it sounds like we are very hard with her. Most of the time, if you in your everyday life, oh yeah, we are very sorry for you, and then whatever we can do. But as a teacher, this is what we do. We got to be firm. Second interview came in, the tears are still there, still crying, and then that. But the third interview came in, is a miracle. Everything changes. The memory is still there, but the sadness, it says that so much different when you begin to make a real effort to notice the sadness. Notice the sadness until the sadness begin to settle down. Even the memories are still very clear. But right now, she could able to sit and watch as if like the memory of the sun passing through without getting involved into the thoughts. Yeah. She knows that still the memory of the sun is there. It's just like there's a disassociation there. So therefore, this time the mindfulness comes in and just watch everything passing through. So in other words, healing starts to take place. Over a year, they go through that difficulty. Then after the third interview, the fourth interview, because it was just only about 10 or 12 days, then the retreat finished. Then when it finished the retreat, she felt so much more lighter in the heart. So mindfulness can change the whole situation, the whole scenario, from the way how we respond to things, response to certain thoughts, certain action, again and again in the same way. But when the mindfulness comes in, it changes it from another way, and to see the things in a more open, with a more understanding, with not falling into the sadness and so on. So that is something that we can do. So too, like we also have seen in the past that yogis have a lot of anger issue, a lot of problem with themselves or with others. They have such a difficult time in the office. You meet with a lot of difficult people, very toxic people who give you hell every day. Then you come into the retreat, you want to, but then that type of thing, because of association of the people in the office day after day, it kind of eats into you. So when you come into the retreat also, you feel so bitter inside there. So here is where we have to note the anger. We have to note the bitter anger until it begins to subside. So a lot of things can change if you learn to pay attention to these things. It will take time. It's not going to take you, as I said, 1 or 2 sittings and then you overcome it. And also, don't go and arouse it when it's not there. Say, for example, you have horrible memories. We all of us have it. Don't go and stir the hornet's nest. If it comes up on its own, then you pay attention to it. Don't go and make an effort, try to dig it up. That is not how we do vipassana meditation. It comes in, you deal with it. It doesn't come in, you forget about it. We keep on arousing the mindfulness, because it's not about we've got to face it. It's about mindfulness. The stronger the mindfulness, the more powerful the mindfulness. Next time, even the thoughts that have been subdued in the past, it arises, supposed to be very angry, but because the mindfulness is so powerful right now, it doesn't affect you at all. It's just like the thoughts just fade away. Even that you haven't encountered these type of thoughts before during the retreat. So this mindfulness, when you take notice of them, it can change a lot of things. Now, here, the anger, they are real. They are present objects. They are prominent objects. So therefore, because it is a prominent object, you pay attention to it. And then therefore, because you pay attention to it, you see that it changes. But the vision, but the thoughts, they are not the real object. They are only a creation of the mind. The mind created out, the memory arises, the vision arises. So you don't catch the thoughts. You have to catch the emotion states. And then you catch the right object. If you try to suppress the thought, then you are catching the wrong object. On the other one, the initial one, when there's no emotion, when you watch the thoughts are passing through, right now, as I said, when you learn to dissociate it from it, what actually happens right now is that you begin to notice the consciousness of the mind that's producing these thoughts. Although right now, when we give the talk, we try to separate these two. But actually, when you're observing it, the consciousness and the concept are all mixed together. But nevertheless, here is where in the beginning process, you sit back, you don't fall into the story, you watch the thoughts one after another, let it pass through. Let it pass through. That is when you begin to notice the thinking process, the planning process, the visualizing process, and then you let it pass through. And when you let it pass through, it fades away, back again to the body, back again to the rising and falling, the sitting, the sensation, and so on. Don't stay with the thinking too much. You think that you won that battle. The thinking is just have hordes of it, still waiting for you. It's still waiting for you. You better come back to your body. If anything, if you cannot deal with the thoughts and thinking and planning, you find that it's so difficult, too much, it's always good to slowly bring back the mind to the body sensation. The bodily sensation, they are safe objects because the body doesn't think. Here, the mind, it thinks, and the real object and the thinking object or the conceptual object, they are so close together. If you cannot separate them, then usually we get caught into the concept, into the creation. So it's good to make sure that when you deal with the thoughts, you know which are the object that you're supposed to pay attention to, and which are the thoughts, which are the concept that you're not supposed to take it up. That would be good for you. Also, during in the in the throughout our daily life, during in the retreat, whether sitting or walking, the concept does not mean only while you're sitting, then it comes through the mind door. Not just only that, not only the mind creates everything, but many times also the concept arises from the five senses. Yeah? You sit there, and then you hear something. You hear something, the mind is already creating it as the sound of a bird. Then if you're not careful, you start thinking, what bird is that? Then you start thinking, you start playing, maybe if it's a red one, is this one? Then the mind starts thinking all kinds of things. Then the concept, the thought starts going through. So here, even when you're sitting down or when you're walking, you got to take note of your senses too. If, like, for example, like some strong sound arises, then you have to note hearing. And don't fall into its whatever it is. Don't fall into the thoughts, whether it is a bird, whether it's a human, whether it is somebody opening the door, who is it, what are they doing. Many years ago, I have these monks. We were monks that, one of these monks, he was sitting there. While meditating, the strange thing is that every time somebody opened the door, he will turn his back and try to look who is it. And then he'll sit again. And then another person comes in because the back is facing the door. He keep on turning and turning and turning. Non-stop. Anytime, any sound, he get caught into it, he has to turn. Because when you are meditating together, you see people's habit. So because you are not careful with this type of sound, the mind starts to, create all kinds of, and then it gets very disturbed. So you got to note hearing. Or if the thoughts come in after the hearing, then you have to note thinking. If the thing or the hearing process is not very pleasant sound, then unpleasantness arises. Then you have to note unpleasant. You got to see that those things as a process. You see that the hearing arises, thoughts arises, feeling arises. Then if you can catch hold of them, whichever is dominant, then you take note of them. Then here you don't fall into the conceptual thoughts, conceptual part of it. Yeah. So too with our seeing also. When you are doing walking meditation, you see somebody passing through, it catch your attention. If it catch your attention for too long, then you have to note seeing. Let them pass, let them go through. Then again, back again to the lifting, pushing, dropping. Sometimes, if you just pass through, it doesn't really catch your attention. Although you know it just passed through, then just bring the attention back, continue on the walking. Then that will also be good for you. So make sure you don't get caught into the concept. Because this concept, if you're not careful, and especially when you're going into the deeper aspect of meditation, sometimes these concepts are even more polished, even much more clearer. So clear that as if like you close your eyes or you open your eyes, it makes no difference. As if it's so clear. So you got to be careful. Sometimes this type of vision arises, that depending on what you believe in your everyday life. Say, for example, if you are a Buddhist here, you sit there, the mind is so clear, then you see some lights coming in. Then you start to interpret. 佛光, all the Buddha's light come. It's just a light of the mind. It's just, but then you believe that this is a Buddha's light coming, shining onto you because you think that you are purified. Then it comes. Then you got to be careful. No, or if you're a Christian or you have other belief or whatever it is, then you interpret it differently. You think that this is Jesus, you think this is God's light, and then everything. It all depends on what you want to believe. And if nobody were to tell you that, you're going to get caught up and you think that you already have some kind of special powers. Yeah. So this concept, if you're not careful, it can really wreak havoc into the one's practice, but you still believe that it's good. Not only that, what happened is that when they get caught into all these things, and they believe that this is wonderful, next time, when they finish their retreat, they go back and they teach the Lord like you, people like you, and then you listen to it. Wow, wonderful! Can get all the lights, can get all the psychic power. Then you follow. Then you get caught into it. All these things is because the mind crave for it. The craving is so strong, the delighting is so powerful that it turns into wrong view. And you believe that. You believe that whatever is there. So it's all mental creation. So you got to be careful. I said this concept is one area that the yogi must able to disconnect, or you must able to segregate, to discern them from which are the right objects to take up and which are not the right object that you have to put aside. So this is on the conceptual part. So tomorrow you try to, the thinking arises, the emotion arises, try to note them. Pay attention to them. Face them if they arises. Don't provoke them. It arises, you have to face them. You got to be mindful of them. So we'll stop here for tonight. We'll continue on another topic tomorrow. Okay.